hear you guys singing from the rooftops this morning. Come on, let's do it. I searched the world, it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures of faith, never enough. You came along and put me back together, and every desire now satisfied here in your love. Yeah. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. And I know it's true. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty to ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn grace into goddess. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn grace into goddess. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
Good singing this morning. Go ahead and have a seat. Well, I've been kind of looking forward to this Sunday. We have a chance to, and Pastor Pat and Luke and Sarah, you're welcome to go ahead and come on up, and because I won't be very long. But I just want you to have an opportunity to kind of get to know Luke and Sarah. They've been attending our church for a while now, and kind of hear their story a little bit and what God is doing through them in the Bedford County area. Let me also say that I've noticed them attending our church, and I've seen them, if I'm at Hebrews once a week or so, working on my sermon slides and things, they're almost always there, meeting with somebody. So they are truly a motivated, hard-working couple, and I just see that work ethic in them and respect that. And I am so not called to youth ministry, okay? I am not. I've been a parent of 4 teenage daughters. You see my hair. And that was as far as youth ministry goes. I love youth, but I am not youth pastor type. And so I appreciate Pastor Pat and Carrie And I also appreciate Luke and Sarah, because what I see in these guys is they just stream life over from not just church and ministry, but sure, come over to the house, sure, we'll talk, sure, sit here for hours. And I'll be like, no, we need to schedule these things. And they just have much more fluid life than I do, and I'm more, linear or whatever. So I just respect that, honestly, and all four of them, actually, though Carrie's out here somewhere. And let's give our youth workers a hand, shall we? So they didn't know I was going to say that, but I think it needs said every now and then. I do appreciate that, and it is a unique and not an easy calling. And the problems in youth probably just get more complex as time passes. But I just appreciate all you guys and the opportunity for the church to kind of hear what's going on and what in the world Young Life even is. So I'll hand it to Pastor Patrick to take over now, and look forward to hearing from y'all.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so so we have Luke and Sarah Bricker, who are part of Young Life Ministries in Bedford. Welcome. We are glad you guys are here. Good, that's awesome. I have had the awesome opportunity over the last couple months, whatever, just to get to know them a little bit, hang out with them a little bit at Hebrews and some different places. And I got to say, they're a phenomenal couple. I think what they're doing is amazing. They are doing a wonderful job at their thing. But before we get into too much here, I have one question. I think a lot of people here that maybe saw the announcement on Facebook ahead of time, they probably had a question this morning, especially now that they're seeing you guys up front here and stuff. And so if you want to go to the next slide, you might have to turn that on. And go to the next slide there. Yeah, there it goes. So this is the picture we had on Facebook. And so I think the burning question for a lot of people is, what happened to the mustache?
That's my question for myself, too. It's for a season of time. When the November time comes around, I feel like I always grow it back.
Okay.
And looking back right at that, now it makes me miss it. So
okay.
that's where it went. Sarah did like it. It wasn't Sarah. So
okay.
That was
gonna be my next question. How did she feel about it?
Oh yeah.
I wasn't sure at first, but
all right.
it grew on me.
All right.
As it
Literally.
grew on him.
and of course, my other question was going to be, is it ever going to come back? But you already answered that, which
I
is
hope
cool.
so. Every year.
And then the other question is, are you a Burt Reynolds fan? Is that,
That's exactly where I came
I mean,
from.
it's like a young Burt Reynolds up there. I mean, that's pretty awesome.
This is going to show my age, but I'm not sure if I know who Burt Reynolds is.
Oh, no. Some of you will have to educate him later. All right.
Please.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, you can go ahead and go to the next slide then. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thanks for being a good sport.
Of course.
All right, so first off, just tell us a little bit about Luke and Sarah. Tell us about kind of like who you are, how you guys maybe got together, that kind of stuff, and where you are today.
Sure, yeah. I'll give my side of the story. It's a lot better when Sarah and I meet. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I'll kind of start where I came from. I grew up actually in Dayton, Ohio. Born and raised, so sorry for I'm an Ohio State fan, not a big Penn State fan. I'm surprised
Strike one.
It's hard for me to even say that up here, so I just want to be completely vulnerable and honest.
We forgive you.
Yeah, thank you. So I grew up in Ohio my whole life. My family, I didn't grow up in a church home at all. My family didn't go to church, really didn't know the Lord, but they actually, from what they did know, my mom took me to Catholic church growing up. So that was my first experience with Jesus. That's my first experience with God and my first experience with any kind of church. And it really just didn't really make sense to myself. I didn't have any kind of background. They didn't tell me what was going on, what was happening. It was just kind of what they knew and what they brought me to. And it was just my mom, my brother, and then myself. My dad didn't come with us. But through that, that was my first exposure to church and what that looked like. And just because I didn't know anything about it was kind of what gave me a different view of oh wow, why do I go every Sunday if I'm not sure what I'm going to do? So it kind of gave me not a bad taste in my mouth, but just a different if I don't know what I'm doing, then why should I be here? But it wasn't until my 8th grade year, my older brother actually, he met the Lord when he was in 8th grade through some friends, through a camp that he was at, and he was changed. A 180 flip. He used to beat me up like no other. And I'm telling you, he was a pretty angry kid. You'd meet him today. If he came up here today, you would not know. Just a 180-degree turn. But that sparked an interest in myself, and I was like, wow, like if this, if he can change, and he says it's because of Jesus, what does that have to do with Jesus then? From everything else that I knew, so I gave it a chance. I gave it a shot. He actually invited me to my first Young Life when I was a sophomore in high school. I ended up going to Young Life camp, which we'll talk about a little bit later to kind of give you guys a full picture of it. And that's where I met the Lord. I met the Lord at Young Life camp in high school as a sophomore. And from then on, I got plugged into Bible studies, got plugged into just a really good community, a really good friendship of my high school friends. And then through college, I began leading as a Young Life leader volunteer. So I was a college student at Cedarville University, which is a small Christian school in Ohio. But I went out and left that campus, and I went and volunteered at a high school 10 minutes down the road and just showed up. I just showed up there faithfully every day. I coached there, and I was walking the schools during dismissal, and just showed up where the kids were at, leading Young Life. And then through that, I volunteered. Through that, I volunteered with Young Life, and then graduated with my accounting degree. 4 years later, left Cedarville and went to work in Columbus, Ohio, as at an accounting's office at a CPA firm, and decided that was not my calling. And that took a little bit to find out. I worked there for about a year. And then God really stirred in my heart, and stirred in my friends' hearts, and stirred in some mentors around my life that kind of encouraged me to apply for Young Life staff. And that's kind of where you see us today. And then Sarah and I met. She'll give a really better explanation of it. We met at a Young Life camp, actually, at Rockbridge, which is in Virginia. She saw me from across the pond. She ran at me. No, just kidding. That was me. But no, we saw each other there, got to know each other for a little bit, and yeah, here we are today. So the rest is history there.
Well, a little background about me. I grew up in York, Pennsylvania. So I've lived in Pennsylvania my whole life, and I grew up going to church. My family went to church my whole life, and I remember meeting the Lord when I was probably about 5 in my bedroom with my mom, and remember praying to accept Jesus in my heart. And but I think the first thing in my life that really kind of made me really question of, is Jesus worth it, and is he real? And was when I was in 6th grade, my parents got divorced, and that totally rocked my world. I just had no idea that I had any concept of a Christian family that got divorced, and it really was the first time in my life that I had to be like, okay, Lord, like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what's going on. But, as a middle schooler, I remember just clinging to Jesus. And that was obviously a hard season of life. And as I went into high school, I was really involved with my youth group at church and had some really wonderful mentors and women that were loving on me and just pouring into me, and started to catch a glimpse of what it looks like to own my faith as my own and not just be through my parents. And then I went to Grove City College, which is a small Christian school north of Pittsburgh, and loved it there. It was an awesome time, and that's a Christian school, so not only was there some really great community just within our school that helped me grow, but that's where I first got involved with Young Life. I had heard about it a little bit in high school. My high school had it, but I never was really involved, and so I didn't really know exactly what it was. But then when I went to Grove City, I started meeting some of the current volunteer leaders that were there, and just learning more about it. And I was like, I love this. Like, I think I really want to be a part of this. And so I became a volunteer leader when I was a freshman, and volunteer-led Young Life at a local high school for 4 years there. And that totally changed my life. I mean, being involved in something that kind of forced me, but I chose it, to go outside of my comfort zone, to not just inwardly have a faith that was inward, but have a faith that was outward, and to give my life away to other people, and to be leading high schoolers, where I was like, man, I got to really know this for myself if I'm going to lead other people. And totally changed my life, and I would say college was really the time that I grew in my faith the most, and will continue to do that. But that was a big shift for me, and I didn't know I wanted to go on Young Life staff. I first wanted to go into occupational therapy and was pursuing that for a while, and then senior year kind of rolled around, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to go to grad school, and and whatnot. And so I started praying about and talking to people about what to do next, and started to explore what it would look like to go on Young Life staff. I was like, I love this mission, and I've loved being a part of it. What would it look like to maybe be on staff? And the Lord really led me to go on staff right after college. And so I went on Young Life staff first in Indiana, Pennsylvania, if you know where that is. It's closer to Pittsburgh. And was there for 2 years. And during that time when I was in Indiana and Luke was in Columbus is when we met and started dating and started pursuing marriage. And during those marriage conversations, he was also considering going on staff. And how we ended up in, I was going to show you a picture. We got married. That was fun.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
We got married about a year and a half ago in September of 2020. But as we were pursuing what that would look like and pursuing what it would look like to be on staff together, there was a huge need here in Bedford, and there was space for, like, in the budget for both of us to be here. And so our boss asked us if we'd be willing to move here. And so we moved here in August of 2020 and got married around the same time. So that's what brought us to Bedford. We were like, hey, I mean, if God's calling us here and there's a need, then let's go. So that's what brought us here.
That's awesome. So what I heard from that was that you had pursued him, right?
Yes.
From
Is
across
that
the
how it goes?
pond. Yeah.
From across the pond, went running
That's
to
exactly
him.
right.
Good stuff. All right, so now that we know the background a little bit, tell us a little bit about what Young Life is, because I'm sure there's a lot of people here that don't really know what Young Life really is, and what that's really about. So, I mean, I'm familiar with it. I've worked with a little bit in the York, PA, I believe it was. I knew some people that worked with Young Life there and had conversations about it and things, and I knew some kids that had gone to Young Life camps and things. So I have a little bit of a background, but a lot of our people probably don't know really what it is. So
Yeah.
go ahead, just give us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, that's perfect. Young Life is awesome. I'm a little bit biased, but Young Life it's a Christian ministry. We reach out to high school and middle school students here in Bedford, but Young Life in general will reach out to college students. They have a ministry for kids with disabilities. They have ministry for pregnant and teen moms. Young Life has a lot of avenues, but the overarching just umbrella of Young Life is that it's a ministry that reaches out incarnationally to high school and middle school students. We just want to love on kids. We want to love every kind of kid that there is that what we would see when we step foot into a school. And one of the biggest things that we love about Young Life is that we're not trying to put on these huge events or these big attractional things that say that, hey, come to us because we have this big deal. But we have this outward call, like we go to them. So with Young Life, we do a lot of we show up to the school. Both Sarah and I coach. We just show up to where they're at and faithfully show up time and time again, even when it's really weird, even when it's really awkward that we're sitting in the student section with kids at a basketball game, at a football game, that we're not really supposed to be there because our time has passed. So I'm not in high school anymore. But we're showing up where kids are at so we can live life with them and get to know them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that Young Life is really big on, like Luke was kind of saying, building relationships with kids. As he said, we're not trying to just sit back and put on an event and hope kids show up. But Young Life's mission is to go towards kids that don't know Jesus. And so in that way, we're different from a church. We partner with churches, which is why we're up here right now. But our mission is to reach those kids that maybe would never want to step foot into a church, want nothing to do with God. Young Life has a term called the farthest out kid, which is basically that kid that you have in your mind that wants absolutely nothing to do with God, you would think would never, ever come to Jesus, but that's our target audience. And the way that we're going to reach them is by going and being with them on their turf. And we believe that's what Jesus did. Jesus went and was with people. He spent time with people. He spent time with people that were outcasts and were the tax collectors and the sinners and the people that the rest of the society thought were scum. But he was with those people that were the quote-unquote farthest out. And so we believe that if we're going to reach kids that wouldn't step foot in church and don't want anything to do with God, that we're going to do what Jesus did, and we're going to go be with them and build relationships with them and pray for them and invite them, eventually, hopefully invite them to come to Young Life. But if they never do, we're still going to build a friendship with them. And whether they come to Young Life or not, we can still have conversations and real life conversations with them. at a basketball game or a football game or at coffee at Hebrews or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like the fact that Young Life is just a term that we kind of like what we're underneath, but we're just building relationships with kids. That's just where we feel called to, like with youth ministry, and we want to build those relationships as best we can. And there's another saying too. Young Life has a lot of sayings, but it says earn the right to be heard. So we're building relationships with these kids because if I go up to somebody and just start, if I open my Bible and I'm like, repent and believe because it says so in here. Like these kids aren't going to listen to me for 1 second. But if I know this kid, if I coach this kid, if I've talked to him about his life, like asked him how he's doing, what's going on in his life, and just built this relationship for months and months, then I might have an easier right to be heard in his life, which we love.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think that I love the relational aspect of your ministry. It's dynamic. It's exactly the way it needs to be able to reach students, like you said, that would never even step foot in a church. And some people may wonder, okay, what's the difference between a youth ministry and what you guys actually do? And that's a lot of it. It's a youth ministry. When they hear, I go up to a student and they're like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a youth pastor. They instantly think church. They instantly think, what we're doing right here, right now, that kind of thing. And sometimes that's a little intimidating for them. When they come to you, oh, I work with YoungLife. Well, what's that? Because they don't even know what it is. Like, what's that? And you're like, oh, it's just a group of kids get together and we have fun and talk and we introduce them to Jesus. And you don't have to start with that, but you get them there, and it's pretty neat. I love the way you guys do that, and I've just heard lots of stories about that stuff. But so in our talkings, you've mentioned before the 5 C's. Can you tell us what are the 5 C's and explain that to us a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first C would be contact work, which is just the fancy word or the term that Young Life uses for going out and building relationships and building friendships with kids. It's from going to a football game and just being present and having people just see that you're there and showing up consistently, to getting coffee with a kid and having to get to talk with them about maybe something that's really hard going on, or going to Burger King and hanging out and having a meal together, or just anything that encompasses caring about kids, spending time with them, building that friendship with them, living life with them. And as we said, along the lines of like earning the right to be heard, the reason that we go and do quote unquote contact work or build these relationships is that kids aren't going to care about what we have to say unless they know how much we care about them. And I think that's true for all people, right? We're not going to care about, you need to show it. You need to show it in order for people to trust what you have to say. And so if we're ever going to have the chance to share with them about Jesus, then we need to show them that we truly care about who they are, regardless of their response. And so that's what encompasses contact work, and we just have a couple pictures for you. So that's at Chick-fil-A with a couple girls. It's really fun. We like to get to go to homecoming. We've actually chaperoned homecoming and prom, but we'll go to the Springs where all the kids get together and just take pictures and whatnot. And so that's a picture of Luke and the guys at the Springs before homecoming this year. That's a Burger King. A lot of this winter, we've gone to a lot of the basketball games, whether they're girls or guys at home, and we've made it a tradition to go to Burger King after the basketball games. And so that's us with a crew of kids at the basketball games. That's just at senior night. Some of the senior girls from the basketball team, just getting to love on them and support them. And that's at a football game earlier this fall. And in the middle there's one of our volunteer leaders. Her name's Amanda, and she's wonderful. But
I was going to say one thing too to add on that. One of the most important things about contact work is just faithfulness and showing up. Like even if you don't, I've gone to like the school and not said hi to a kid at all, but I was there and they saw my face and they saw me just be there and show up. Just because I was so nervous and so like scared to even say hi to one of these kids, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should not be here. But the calling is to show up and to be faithful. So just showing up is like exactly what Jesus did. So we try to emulate that. But
yeah, thanks. The second one would be what we call club, and club, as it says, coined the term party with a purpose, which is basically club is our outreach event where we are putting on. It's an event, but it's putting on just a night where kids can feel loved and feel accepted and feel like they belong. And it's just geared towards high school kids, and we get to be goofy and silly and play really stupid games. And we usually have some skits and with just ridiculous characters. And and maybe some songs or whatever it may be. And at the end of the night, we eventually have a brief talk about who Jesus is. And so at club, every week, we're talking about who Jesus is. And typically, in the span of a semester, is what we shoot for, to go through the whole progression of the gospel of who Jesus is, why we need a Savior, what sin is, what Jesus did on the cross and the resurrection, and what that means for them. And so every semester, we're going through that whole message. And then we'll talk about camp in a minute, but when we go to camp, they hear that whole message in a week as well. And so club is geared towards those kids that don't know Jesus, and so we want to introduce them to who he is. But we want to do it in an environment that feels non-intimidating. So typically we do it either at a kid's house or our house. And so maybe a kid that doesn't want anything to do with Jesus, but they know Johnny, and I'll go to Johnny's house, right? That feels less intimidating. That kind of breaks down some walls for them. And they'll say, maybe I'll go to Johnny's house. And then that gets them to a space where they're gonna have a ton of fun, and they're gonna feel loved, and they're gonna be in a space where they belong and they can be themselves and be a kid, and but also hear about the God who loves them like crazy. Typically at club, it's really fun that we are working with our kids that maybe do know Jesus, and we're going to talk about campaigners next. But kids, there's a space for kids that do know the Lord to be at YoungLife. We want them to help them grow in their faith and disciple them, but club is a space then for them to bring their friends to. And maybe they have friends that don't know the Lord, and we're encouraging them to bring their friends and say, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for you to bring them to a space where they're going to have a ton of fun, but also get to hear about who Jesus is. You have anything to add?
Yeah, that's good. The only thing I'll add is that we do it in our house that comfortably sits 10, but we usually have 20, 25 kids come in there, and it gets really sweaty and hot. So it's super fun. It's why it's a party with a purpose. You'll see some pictures after this.
That was a picture from our Christmas party, just a bunch of the guys.
It's our living room.
That's our living room, yes. We move all of our furniture out of the way, and it's a really good time. That was a Galentine's Day party thing we did. You can see the couch comfortably fits probably 3 on that couch. And there's, who knows how many on there. That's just a game that we did. We're always doing silly games. A lot of times it gets messy, which makes it more fun, right? In the fall, we did a paint war outside, which was really fun, just as a way to kind of kick off the school year. So as I mentioned, we have campaigners, which are campaigners is that time for kids to know more. We're going to open up the Word, and we're going to study God's Word together. And so it's geared towards kids that want to know more about who Jesus is. Maybe they've been coming to club for a while, and they're like, who is this Jesus guy? Like, I really want to know more, and so we're going to invite them to come to campaigners. Or it's also for those kids that maybe do go to church and maybe do have a relationship with Jesus already, but it's a time for them not only to grow, but for us to cast vision for them of what it looks like to live out their faith in a way that's tangible, in a way to reach their friends at their school, and give them a vision for and a heart for their kids, for their friends that don't know Jesus, and not just for their friends, but we have a lot of conversations about what does it look like to maybe invite somebody that's in your math class that you've never talked to before, or to have those eyes for the kids and their friends and their peers that are at their school. That's really their mission field right now is their high school and middle schools. And what's really fun about campaigners is not only are we digging into God's Word and learning a lot more, but we're really trying to see what it looks like to apply it to their lives. And so we'll ask them a lot of questions about what that looks like and try and challenge them. And there are a lot of times that it's pretty silent in the room when we ask a question, but we're coaxing it out of them. High schoolers and middle schoolers don't always want to answer questions, but it's fun then to see when they do start, when the light starts to click, and you can see it in their eyes, and you can see when they start to ask questions that they're tracking, and that's a really exciting time.
Yeah, 2 things I wanted to add there is, like, we have kids that don't know anything about Christ, and then we have kids that have grown up in church their whole life. And just the array and the span that we get to have in that room is just so helpful, because I remember when I was in high school looking up to the seniors that knew a lot about who Jesus was. Like, when I gave my life to Christ as a sophomore, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know anything at all. But I really looked up to the upperclassmen because they knew what they were doing, and I followed them and watched them. So that's like kind of what we're emulating here, of like just saying, guys, look up to these people that are in your life and in here. Yeah, I do this all the time. I don't remember my second thing, but it might come back. So I'll let you know if it does. But you can go on.
So campaigners, you're not campaigning for an office or anything.
No.
Right? All right, so
No.
there you go.
If you see 2024 me coming out.
That's
Just
right.
kidding.
There's just a couple pictures and just like Club, we host campaigners in a home. Whether a lot of times it's at our home or a kid's home as well, and just feels like a comfortable space that people can get together. You see a lot of pictures of our couch. Our couch is very photogenic. And as we've mentioned a couple times, we have camp. So YoungLife has YoungLife owned properties across the United States, and there's actually a few international ones as well. And so we go to a YoungLife owned property, which is just absolutely gorgeous. It's not really like resort camping. And they are decked. They're like $1 million properties, or usually around a lake, just tucked away in mountains. And so it's gorgeous. And camp is what we like to call the best week of our lives. And really, we have a lot of kids that come home and tell us that, or even come home or don't want to leave. But it's a time where we get to take kids away, get to take them to a space that is not only just absolutely gorgeous and beautiful, they get to experience God's creation, but they're distraction free. At YoungLife Camp, we have no phones, and that's usually a little bit of a, can be a little bit of a challenge at first, but then we've never had a kid that comes home and says, I regret not having my phone that week. And it's all of camp. It's not just a Bedford thing. Like when we go to camp, we're there with other areas from around Pennsylvania or other states, and it's camp wide, and so nobody has their cell phones. There's which is amazing. I can't imagine being there with phones because they get to experience real life without the distraction of a screen in front of them, whether they're hanging out in the pool or tubing on the lake or going down a zip line or doing the ropes course or just hanging out with their friends. We get to sit around a table at every meal, and we have a server that serves them food. And so there are kids that maybe have never sat around a table with a family before, but we have YoungLife intentionally has circular tables in their dining halls, and so that kids can sit around a table, we can look each other in the face and laugh and have conversation. And there are so many kids that don't get to do that at home. Every night we have club at camp where it's awesome because there's like 400 kids in the room, and you're singing and you're dancing and you're playing games and you're having a good time. And then there's a speaker that, as I said before, will eloquently in language that makes sense for middle schoolers and high schoolers explain the gospel to them, explain who Jesus is and what he did for them. And all across YoungLife Camp, they are building in so many ways, building up for kids to have a chance to experience Jesus in so many ways, whether that's by being served at mealtime. It's not buffet style. They have a server, which actually is really cool. The servers are our work crew, which are high schoolers that come and volunteer at camp and give up their time. And so high schoolers that are campers get to see peers, people their own age, giving up their time, not being paid, and serving them food. And they're like, why would you do that? And so then that sometimes opens up cool conversations to be like, well, like it's because of Jesus that they're doing that. And we at camp, we're really big on adventure because we believe that following Jesus is an adventure, and following Jesus is really fun. And I think a lot of times kids have a stereotype of thinking that God is just gonna take away all their fun if they start following him, but that's quite the opposite. And so there's usually a ropes course and like I said, tubing and other fun activities that maybe pulls them out of their comfort zone a little bit, but it kind of shows them if they're able to maybe get on the ropes course and conquer that, then maybe they can take that step of faith later in the week. Or we have a couple pictures for you. Do you have anything to add about camp?
I was gonna say it really breaks down walls. You put kids in an environment where they don't have their phones, they're with their friends, and they're having an awesome time. Like you can have conversations that will change their life. That's what happened to me when I was in high school, but then I've also seen it happen in campers' lives. And even too, I would love to say that I've had an experience where I've had a conversation with a kid, and he's really, really tracking, really getting the gospel and really understanding what is happening, what Jesus did for him. But at the end of the week, I asked him, like, hey, like, what do you think about Jesus? Like, do you, like, want to give your life to him? And he told me no. And I was like, that is totally okay. I'm still going to love you the same, no matter what. And by the grace of God, like, he woke up that next morning, And then he said, I actually do want this. But it's like, even if they say no, like we're not going to just, leave them high and dry. Like we want to be there with these kids just because we care for them. We care for them for who they are, not for the decision they make for Christ. We want that, obviously, but it's not not why we do that.
Right. And I was just going to add to what's something that's unique and special about Young Life Camp is that us as leaders here at home go with them to camp. They don't go to camp and meet their counselor, but we get to go with them and we spend that week with them that maybe is life-changing if they make a decision for Jesus, or and have a ton of fun and continue to build that friendship that we've started building here at home, and then take them to camp and walk with them through camp, and then go back home with them and continue to love them and process with them what they heard at camp and continue to build that friendship.
Yeah, that whole camp experience is phenomenal. And even with our Camp Manawagan, people underestimate the power of taking their cell phones away. If you don't hang out with teens a lot, maybe you don't realize it as much. But if you hang out with teens all the time, you realize how distracting those phones can be. And then when you take them away that time, even for just a week, like you said, you can have such great conversations with these students where they just kind of wake up and you're like, oh, look, I can see your eyes.
Yeah.
It's like when I'm talking to you and you're looking at me and not looking down, it's pretty cool. But
exactly right.
Camp is amazing. So, awesome.
Just have a couple pictures from this past summer. This is high school camp. So we do high school and middle school ministry separately. So we take high schoolers to camp, and then there's a different week that we take middle schoolers. But as you can see, it's kind of tucked away in the mountains, and this is our camp. Last year we went to a camp in Virginia, which is called Rockbridge. This summer we're going to a camp, Young Life camp in New York. It's called Lake Champion. But we have a brief video for you to see a glimpse of what camp is. So that's a brief glimpse of how awesome camp is. There we go. And our last C is is committee, which is our group of volunteer adults that support us in a ton of ways. And so because we want to keep Young Life local here, we have people that have been here longer than Luke and I that are adults in this community that are supporting us not only financially, but through prayer, through empowering our volunteer leaders, through praying for kids, and so many ways. Maybe they open up their home for us to host things there, or in numerous ways. But there are a group of volunteer adults that are absolutely backing this ministry, and it's really fun because we have a handful of adults that are from different communities throughout Bedford County, and we're always looking to grow. We want more. We want our committee to represent our whole county as a whole. So, do you have anything to add about committee?
I think that's good. Yeah,
they're wonderful. There's just a picture of some of our committee. That was the day that we went and prayed outside of the high school at Bedford. Actually went to all the high schools in the county, but that was just one picture. And I just wanted to add, I mentioned briefly that we do high school ministry and middle school ministry separately. And so our middle school ministry is called YoungLife. Those are just a couple pictures from from our wildlife ministry, and it's so fun. We have 2 volunteer leaders that help us with wildlife, and they're just incredible. And middle schoolers are a whole ball of fun in themselves, and so just wanted to point that out. But
All right, and so let me ask you this. Is there any stories or specific students that you can think of that you can tell us about a little bit about, maybe that you're excited about right now, that you're working with, or whatever, just little stories or anything like that you could share?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got 2 kids, and I promise I'll remember both of them this time. There's a freshman, and he's just been coming around to YoungLife. He just showed up one day, which has been really awesome. And he doesn't know anything about Jesus. I don't think he ever heard about like any kind of Bible story in his life before he came to YoungLife. But he's been coming to our campaigner group, which is our small Bible study. But I tell you, he's probably one of the kids that asks probably the most theological questions, because he's just starting to get it. He's just starting, and it's nothing that we're doing. It's nothing that Sarah and I are doing. It's the Lord and the Holy Spirit working in his life. But he is just asking questions. Like, I remember him specifically saying at a campaigners, so he said, Luke, so you said that God, or what you're saying, Luke, is that God loves people that doesn't love him. And we're like, yeah, like that's exactly right. And just like these small quotes that like this kid keeps on saying. And it's so amazing to watch that. And I think it's a blessing from the Lord that he's putting this freshman kid in our life for Sarah and I, because I think it just encourages us weekly to see that. And then to watch him do track. And to watch him outside of school and just be fully changed. Then I have a senior who's grown up in the church his whole life, but has been, for lack of a better word, kind of been a consumer. Like, he's just been there. He's been getting it all in, consuming it all. But and like, not of myself, only the Holy Spirit. But we've seen him be able to give himself up to sacrifice and really just to serve his friends, which has been really fun. He's just saying, man, there's more to life than just me and just what I want for my senior year. And he actually started taking less classes his senior year so he could invest more times into his friends, which has been really cool. Like, he gives ride to freshmen to club. He hangs out with kids at school. He is a leader when you look up to him, and just has so much words of wisdom to love on these kids. So it's been really fun to walk with those 2 different kids, just this year, and hopefully for more to come.
yeah. There's a girl that I've gotten to know really well this past year here. She's a freshman as well, and I'm just really excited about her. I don't think that she has a relationship with Jesus, but she definitely is seeking full life in a lot of ways, which some are really heartbreaking right now, but it's been really fun to get to know her and for her to just open up and to trust me and have conversations and share with me what she's going through. But she's started to come around to YoungLife, and she started to come to club, and I think that she sees something different there. I think she sees something that is more real and more authentic, and she's attracted to that. And so I'm really excited. I think she's going to come to camp, and so I'm really pumped to have that time with her. But it's just been really fun to get to know her, and I'm really excited that she's a freshman and get to be with her for the next 4 years. And so I'm just really been praying for her that it would click and that she would want to know Jesus personally. But it's been just such a gift to get to walk with her and know that she's seeking for that life. Maybe not finding it in the right places right now, but just praying that the Holy Spirit changes her heart and sees that.
Awesome. All right, so if you had to kind of sum it up, whatever, what would you say would be your vision for Bedford County, YoungLife in Bedford County? What's your vision for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a picture for it.
I'm full of great questions.
You are full of great questions. Look at that. That's good Photoshop right there.
Oh, yeah.
I did not do that. I'm not talented. But so we currently have ministry where the star is in Bedford. Go Bisons. And we have high school ministry and middle school ministry going on, which is really fun, and it's super awesome. And our hope in the next 5 years is to make Bedford's club and campaigners kind of a flagship. So when we have the opportunity, when we have the leaders, when we have the committee, when the Lord opens the doors, that Chestnut Ridge and Northern Bedford and Tussey Mountain and Everett can look to Bedford and see what is going on here, what does that look like, and how do we do that, and how is club ran really well, how is campaigners ran really well, so that they can kind of look at that and copy that in their own communities. And we hope to build a committee, even in the next 5 years, we want to have Bedford be a flagship, but even in the sooner years, we want to start seeing adults in the communities of the Chestnut Ridge and the Northern Bedford and Tussey Mountain and the Everett communities start to come together and just start praying. Young Life was founded in 1941, but even before that, they say that there were 6 women in a church that started praying for high school students. They said, I just pray, Lord, that you open the doors for the high school. And then Young Life was started. And then they found this out 10 years later or something like that into it, that, God is the one who starts things. It's not us. So we want to start praying for these other communities in the area so we can have the same thing going on. But to start that, we need people. We need interest. We need just a family of people that love kids and love Christ to start praying that this would happen. That's our hope. That's our hopefully vision, that we get Sarah and I are head over the entire county. But we're only 2 people, so we need hands and feet to help us. So that's kind of where we want to go. Do you want to add anything to that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, so that leads right into the next question that I have for you, and that is specifically, other than we've asked you here this morning, we're going to take a love offering as you exit. There's a basket out there that you can give to their ministry. If you write a check or whatever, just make that directly to the church, and then we get that to them through Young Life. But other than doing a love offering here stuff, how can we as a church come behind you guys and help you guys out? Or as individuals, how can we help you guys out?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's numerous ways, but some of the big ways, really first and foremost, is prayer. And I personally sometimes really struggle with prayer. I like to just kind of I'm bullheaded, and just steamroll ahead and just do things on my own. And the Lord humbles me a lot, and He's like, "No, you need me." And I'm like, "Okay." And so just really, we want to back this ministry on prayer. We believe that's really the most important thing. And so. And then just being advocates for Young Life in your community, and as you're in conversations, and if people, maybe parents that have kids or grandparents that have kids in high school or middle school, and just if they're looking for a place to plug in, and especially if they're kids that don't go to church, maybe you can suggest to them Young Life and get them in contact with us. And or if they are involved in a church and they're looking to maybe find a way to just experience reaching out to their friends at their specific school. Young Life is a great way to do that. But just being advocates in your community and spreading the word about what Young Life is. And if you have any questions, we're always available to answer those questions and help you explain those conversations more. Another way would be financially. Young Life is a nonprofit. We're funded by donors, and so if you would ever feel led to give financially to our ministry, then that's a huge way to keep our ministry going and staying here in Bedford. If you want to get involved in a more hands-on way, you can be a part of our committee, our board of adults that are volunteers that really support our ministry in a lot of ways. Or you can be a volunteer leader and be on the ground at the schools with kids, building relationships with kids, and you can be involved in that way. And there's lots of other ways and smaller ways. We have a fundraiser that's coming up. It's called Cow Patty Disc Toss. And briefly, this is on April 3rd. It'll be at Bedford Fairgrounds. But
I was going to say, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. So a very tangible way that you can support us right now is to come to this. So this is one of our big fundraisers for the year that will help support our operating budget. And basically, you'll buy a disc, and there's going to be a cow there that will make a patty in a field. And if you throw the disc and get closest to the patty, you'll win a big cash prize. But there's a couple other rounds. We'll have a round where you can throw discs at yard signs that have sponsorships on them, and smaller cash prizes too. And we'll have a silent auction and food truck and music and different things like that. But that would be something that would be really tangible if you are free April 3rd. It's a Sunday. I think 2 Sundays from now to come. And
our youth will actually, on April 3rd, we're not going to be having youth group on Sunday night. We're actually going to be going there and participating in that with all of our teens, anyone that wants to go. And I'm going to be helping out with some of the tech stuff. But we're going to be there just to support Young Life and to get to know a little bit more about these guys, whatever. So it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a big
Sounds
deal.
like
We
an awesome
appreciate that.
opportunity.
Yeah,
It's going to be great. You can get a picture with the cow, too, so that's fun.
it'll be fun. Yeah.
All right.
I think this will be right up the alley of Bedford County,
Yeah.
which is great.
I'm
So-
sure Pastor Jeff is probably looking at this and thinking, I can come up with some sermon illustrations from this somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if you want any more information, not only about Cow Patty Distos or just about Young Life in general, we have a website, bedfordcounty.younglife.org. But also, Luke and I will be outside in the lobby if you just have any questions or want to talk to us more or are interested in getting involved in any way. Then we'd love to talk with you or just meet you in general, since we're even new here. So we'd love to get to know you
As I
better.
said, just introduce yourself. That'd be awesome. Yeah, we'll try to remember as many names as we can.
Yep.
But we got it, though.
Oh, yeah. It takes a while.
Yeah.
All right. Well, awesome, guys. Some great information. And, this is one of those things that it excites me to be able to partner with people like this in ministry that are in our area. They're doing some pretty phenomenal things. Like I said, I've gotten a chance to really get to know these guys, and I hope and pray that you guys will get to know them a little bit better and that we can support them in this ministry. I just think it's something that our area needs. It really does. I love the fact that you guys are doing it here in our area, because youth groups are wonderful, and they're a vibrant thing in the church, and it's a great way to reach teens. But as I'm hoping this morning people realize, we didn't have a sermon this morning. We didn't have Pastor Jeff doing a sermon, but there's so much we can still take away from this morning. And that is talking about how ministry can be done and how we're not just the church when we come here together on Sunday morning, but we're the body of Christ when we're out and about in our communities doing the things we do, when we're going to Burger King with students after a game, when we're doing those types of things. We can do ministry in so many different ways, and different ministries all look a little different, and they all have their place. And so it's a great partnership. I'm excited about it, excited to see what you guys are going to do in the future, excited to see how we can be part of it. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, well, I'm going to pray, and then we're going to have the worship team come back up, and we're going to move on. All right? Father, just thank you so much for this opportunity for us to be here this morning, to be able to learn about Young Life, to be able to talk about what this ministry truly is, how they're reaching teens in our area. Father, I can't wait to partner with these guys a little bit and to be able to even learn from one another, Father, just to be able to reach teens better and to see how our area can grow and do that, Father. I pray that our church would just come on board with this vision a little bit too, Father, that we would think about what that looks like to reach teens in our area, in our community, and not just teens, Father, but how can we take these same type of principles of going and meeting people where they are and apply that to our own lives, to where we're meeting people in our places of work, places at school, or wherever it is, Father. I pray that you would help us to have that heart and that passion for others. Father, I just thank you again for this morning. Thank you for Luke and Sarah and their devotion to you. And these things I ask in your name. Amen.
Let's stand together and sing a song that talks about boasting in the Lord our God, not in ourselves.
Let not the wise man boast in his kingdom, nor let the strong man boast in his strength. Let not the rich man boast in his riches, but let the humble come and give thanks to the one for coming today. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your first day of spring.